Okay, class, here's the video for the third objective. Here, we're going to learn how to determine the appropriate sample size when we're estimating the population proportion P. StatCrunch can help us calculate how large of a sample is needed in order to estimate a population proportion. This is the first thing you should figure out whenever you're conducting a study of your own. How big should my sample be? In order to do this, there's a few things we need to know. First, we look for the level of confidence that we desire. Second, the acceptable margin of error, E. This is how close we want to get to the actual population value. We'll also need to know the width of the interval, which is 2 times the margin of error. And finally, we need an estimate of the population proportion. In StatCrunch, this is called the target proportion. Now, often we won't have such an estimate because, well, we're trying to estimate that already. If you do know that estimate, it can reduce the sample size that you need to take. If that number is unknown, use 0.5. That will maximize the sample size, and the error that we make is by sampling too many, which is a better mistake than sampling too few. For the StatCrunch steps, this is under Stat, Proportion Stats, one sample, width, sample size. Enter the confidence level and the target proportion on the left. Again, use 0.5 if that target proportion is unknown. Enter the width, which is double the margin of error, and then compute, and you'll have your sample size. Here's the first example. I want to estimate the percentage of community college students who are female. How large of a sample must I take in order to be 95% confident that the sample proportion is within 5% of the true percentage if there is no estimate of the proportion? Okay, so here's some information that's important. I have a 95% confidence level, or 0.95. We want the sample proportion to be within 5% of the true percentage. That means that the margin of error is 5%, or 0.05. That also means that the width is 2 times that, or 0.10. There's no estimate of the proportion. That tells me that my target proportion in StatCrunch is going to be 0.5. Okay, with these three numbers in hand, 0.95 for the confidence level, 0.5 for the target proportion, and 0.10 for the width, let's go to StatCrunch. Okay, in StatCrunch, we'll go to Stat, Proportion Stats, one sample, and this time, width, sample size. The confidence level was 95%, so we leave that alone. There's no estimate of the proportion, so we leave the target proportion as 0.5. For the width, it's 2 times the margin of error of 0.05 or 0.10. Press compute, and there's the sample size, 385. Okay, for example 2, this is the exact same setup, except we know that last semester, 57% of students were female. So in addition to the confidence level being 0.95 and the width being 0.10, my target proportion is going to be 0.57. Okay, let's go back to StatCrunch to finish off this objective. Picking up from example 1, we leave the confidence level as 0.95, but we'll change the target proportion to 0.57 because now we have an estimate of 57% of students were female last semester. We'll have to change the width back to 0.10, press compute, and the sample size now is 377.